Oh, we're live. Here we are. Hi,
Hello.
hi, everyone. So welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. I am here today. Hang on, let's put the title up. I'm here today with Sa-Eun Park, who is joining me from Seoul, and which this is the furthest that anyone has joined me for one of these conversations. So thank you so much. It's 9 o'clock in the morning where you are. It's 8 p.m. here in Hamilton, Ontario, where I am. And so, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Todd, for creating this space. I appreciate you so much. And my name is Sa-Eun. And as Todd already shared, I'm standing in South Korea, but I just moved here from Vermont in United States and Montreal in Canada. I had been traveling and nomading for a while, and decided that it was time to reconnect with my motherland. So it's such an honor to feel my 2 feet touching this part of the earth. And professionally, I am a life coach, a leadership coach, a voice coach, and also really dabbling into healing our money trauma these days as well. My background is in microfinance and international development. And so when I left that industry, with a sense of burnout that kept repeating in my life, and needing to really look at what is the issue for me as a personal journey, it connected to voice and money. And so that's really where my passion is.
Those are big,
Yeah.
heavy topics, and we're here to talk about decolonizing our voices.
Here we go.
This is so. I'm gonna put our names back. Shall we do a little designed alliance before we start? Maybe just
Yeah.
yeah. So what's important for you in this space as we look at the next half hour that we're going to spend together?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. And I feel it's so important, especially when it comes to topics that are uncomfortable for many. And what's important to me is permission
Yeah.
to speak from the intelligence that is in my body and in my heart, including what I know in my head, but I would like that grace to be able to connect with what is being shared through my body. The other thing that I'd like to say is permission also for silence. Silence speaks louder than our blah blahs, my blah blahs. So I
People
would
who watch
like
this
some
show know that
permission
I
for
blah blah
that.
blah a lot.
Yeah. What about you, Todd?
I love that. I love the idea of sort of listening to the body wisdom too. And what I'll share also with everyone is when Sa-Eun and I started this conversation, we came on camera and realized we were both standing up. Normally I'm sitting when I do this, but I thought, nope, this is a standing conversation for some reason. So I can move around. There's lots,
I can do
right?
this.
Exactly. So what's important for me here as we think about that is, I'm just going to blurt this one out. I'm a little nervous about this conversation. I don't feel super comfortable or super qualified within the context of decolonizing my voice, our voice. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. Part of my identity, and a really significant part, is like I'm a white guy living in North America, so settler is part of my identity, and it's I mean, is it one that I'm proud of? Is it one that I'm not proud of? Is it like I haven't even really given that a whole lot of thought? It's just there. So I think as I think of this conversation, what's going to be important for me is permission to notice things without necessarily having to analyze or judge them all the time, because I don't know that I'm even there yet.
Mm. Mhm.
I hadn't thought of that, but
I know.
yeah. I think that's because I'm going to make mistakes. I know
Right.
I make mistakes, and that's fine. I'm okay.
Permission to be wrong.
Permission to be wrong and messy and
Yes.
whatever, and just, there it is. And if it's messy, then just I'll clean it up. All right. Can we jump in?
May I add one more?
Absolutely.
Permission to share from a personal journey.
Yes.
Because I think a topic like this, we're not here as like academics, or we're not on a debate stage. Who knows more? Who knows the history? It's not that. We're really interested in what it means to the self. What is colonizing and decolonizing mean to you? Yeah. Here. Yes.
Oh, I got a shiver when you said that. Yes to all of that. Oh, that's wonderful. So now should we jump in?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. Would you like to kick us off and talk a little bit about what decolonizing your voice means to you?
Yes. So I had a kind of an epiphany of an analogy in terms of what it means to me. And I thought it could be useful if I shared it here, because I think we take it quite personally when we use the word colonization, depending on what race your spirit might be living in. This meat suit, depending on what meat suit you might be in, you might feel like when you hear the word, I'm on this side or the other side.
Yeah.
Right? But the way that I began to see it in a different way is that, perhaps we're all living, creating a kind of a movie. You see? And there is a role, an archetype, a character that we all understand when we say the word the white man or the colonizer. And perhaps over 500 years of colonization, which also is a word that feels quite past time. Like our countries, most of our countries aren't still colonized to this day. But I chose this word because of wanting to remember that 500-year history and how it still lives through our body and through our system and the structure within which we live in. And so going back to this movie, and I'm super simplifying it and super generalizing it to make a point, but it's almost as if we wake up in the morning and we all have been given a kind of a script and a role to play within a movie where this role of a white man, not white man, the Todd Cargus, white man, somebody who's in a white suit, but this archetype of, dominating and, bulldozing kind of a character, colonizing character, sits at the top. And the rest of 8 billion people in the world plays a role in this one simple movie we all take part in. So if we can decolonize from it, to me, it's like, what if we wake up one day and decide that, no, I'm not playing a part in that role anymore. I get to play my own movie. Todd gets to play his own movie. That there is going to be an 8 billion different movies and channels being played, roles that you each get to create for yourself. That to me feels like decolonization.
That's so much more personal than what I was expecting. Yeah, because I love what you're saying. What I love about it is that is sort of it's the creation of agency, and when I think of colonization, whether it's the historical or active colonization, it's really about the removal of agency, right? Like it's theft. It's stealing from one people to benefit another people, right? On at least that's where it lives in my head and how I understand it. And what I'm hearing in what you're saying is that decolonization is really about sort of rediscovering what that very personal agency is, whether the meat suit that you live in is a people who have been stolen from, or traditionally a people who have stolen. And I think there's something lovely about that, but for like what's also popping up is it feels like there's something problematic about that too. And I'm having I can't put my finger on it. Right? I can't, like, it's sort of almost like it's guilt. That's what's coming up. It's guilt. And because I think of it sort of in the same way that I think of anti-racism. Like there's truth and reconciliation. That's the phrase that's popping up. Right? And in order for there to be reconciliation, it needs to be preceded by truth. And I think maybe it's like perhaps the question then is like, what's the truth of colonization within my voice? I've explored.
Beautiful. So may I share my truth?
Yes.
You see, like,
Please.
I think everyone's truth is your lived experience and the story that you tell yourself about that experience, right? So once I began to do inner work, really looking into why is it I mean, really what brought me to look inside was burnout. I was just completely burned out. And what is going on inside me, because I kept changing jobs, I kept changing partners, I kept changing the external, and I still was back in the pattern of burnout. Okay. So when I looked inward, I didn't expect to discover this because I lived a beautiful, beautiful life. My parents, out of poverty in South Korea, migrated to Saudi Arabia at my age 2. They had the opportunity to explore a completely different world. And there, because of oil money, and I mean, my father was part of like the industrialization boom. And so there was enough abundance in our family to send me to a boarding school in Austria, in Salzburg, surrounded by beautiful Alps. I went skiing every Wednesday, and like, I mean, it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous life. Which allowed me to, continue to accelerate and have whatever I want and succeed in my life. But there is the dark side to this story, which I call, to me, a personal colonization, how I was programmed into losing my authentic voice. So this part of the story, I just want to give a trigger warning, because I will be sharing a story around my own trauma. And, not everybody may be ready or feel the capacity to hear it. So I give you permission to pause or skip this part if you feel that is what you need. Take care of yourself. But so from a colonization point of view, when colonizers enter a new land, first things that they do is get rid of your language. Don't give you permission to speak your language. And therefore then, like, genociding, or what's the word for getting rid of the culture of the land, right? So my country, Korea, was once colonized by the Japanese. And the Japanese, really, my grandparents experienced this, like really beat Koreans when they spoke the Korean language in public. So that is a behavior that got programmed into my grandparents. Yeah. Fast forward, My father, he was born during the war while the bombs were going off during the Korean War, 1950. And he was born by the creek side. So you can imagine a lot of fear was infused into my father's brain and his entire nervous system when a baby is born during the war. Yeah. Okay. So post-war, Korea is completely devastated, which is just shocking to imagine that this was 1950 looking at South Korea right now. But because of this devastation and lack of job opportunities and poverty, he decides to migrate to Saudi Arabia. Like there was nothing there, desert. And he's part of this industrialization movement, building roads and buildings. During this time, now I'm 2 year old and growing up there. Really, like my worldview is now like switched from Korea to Saudi Arabia. No one's speaking English around me. Only few expats, white Western expats here and there. But I am now taught English through my father, through others, like hiring a tutor and whatnot. And my father beats me in how he teaches this language. Like if I get a word wrong, he beats me. If I pronounce it wrong, which is so funny, right? Canadian, American, British accent, like what is right or wrong. But out of this sheer love and desire for me to be successful in this world that he sees as controlled by the white. So then I applied to some of the Western schools because Korean school doesn't exist in Saudi. So I applied to a few, and pretty much all of them reject me because my English isn't good enough. And therefore, I am separated from my mother and father at age 12 to a boarding school in Austria. When I land there, I don't speak English, I don't speak German. So I am completely like, my worldview suddenly becomes this daytime education of white perspective of the world. Is that education really useful, beautiful, amazing education that I received? Absolutely. But just from a colonization point of view, my worldview changed into, what we call white gaze, white perspective. I lost that ability to think from my own authentic self, from my lineage's point of view, and it became a white perspective. And therefore, that trauma of separating from your parents so early that really nobody should experience. Trauma closes you up from fear. And it really closed up my heart and my story that I am not good enough. My family isn't good enough as a Korean.
Wow.
Like that identity of this Korean body, this Korean history, Korean lineage became a less than in my system through this experience. And so it really distanced me from my family for the rest of my life until I began to really get curious about my burnout. Like I think maybe you can already start connecting the dots as to what the burnout is about, right? It's not showing up authentically in your own in who you already are. But I really got disconnected from that. Yeah.
I hear you. That's thank you for sharing that. That's a lot. That was very intimate. Thank you. Ooh.
How are you feeling? What's coming up for you, Todd?
So what's so interesting is the flip side of the coin. My experience was very, very different from yours. I live 150 kilometers from the city in which I was born. I have moved around North America and I've lived in different places, but I've returned back to, the place that's closest to, to where my family's from. But if you go back in time, my family is European. My
Mm-hmm.
mother is Polish, my father is German, um, and when I say it's the flip side, when I hear your story, what was taken from you culturally and what was inserted specifically was that what you call the white perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm noticing, or have only just recently started noticing about myself, is my whiteness. And what I mean by
Mm-hmm.
that is just, for decades, I existed without thinking that I had a race, as I think a lot of white folks do in North America, at least. Um, and sort of owning that whiteness and everything that goes along with it has been interesting and difficult and challenging. And in the same way that I've started to notice that, like, when I'm aware of my race, I become aware of other things. I suspect that the same is true within the context of decolonization of the voice, and that there's probably things, insidious things, that exist underneath um, the obvious, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
trained to look for
Hmm.
because because my identity is white settler living in North America. It's just it is what I am.
As you share it, I want to say the same. I wasn't
Mm,
trained to look for that unseen. None of us are. We're actually
mm,
all swimming in the same water. I've also benefited so much from colonized perspective of the world, white supremacy. I've you know, I yes, there is the flip side, but I feel that we're all also experiencing it in the same way. I experience so much guilt and shame as I begin to see myself, how much I've benefited from
mm,
the life of acting white, as I said, that white role. I just learned how to play that role
mm-hmm,
and get paid for it.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And perhaps, for you, it's like you don't even have to put anything on. You already are. But it really, yes.
I do actually, you know what? I do think, I don't know that necessarily it's about putting something on, but I do think it's about taking something off.
Mm,
Because I really resonate with your story of burnout.
mm,
That is a part of my story as well. And what I've noticed is armor. A lot of my burnout story was the heaviness that was associated with protecting myself because there was
yeah.
something precious that needed protecting. And as I've removed more and more layers of armor, I've realized actually it's not that precious. It doesn't need protecting. Actually, it's okay. And that whole truth is what's important, whatever it is. Because the thing is truth is like that. It's what you love, but it's also what you don't love.
Mm,
It's what you're proud of, and it's what you're ashamed of. That's the whole thing together is truth. And it's beautiful and scary and weird and hard to be with sometimes.
sounds like a human.
Yeah, it does. It's
There's like good stuff and the bad stuff. The feel you're proud, things you're proud of, and the things you
mhm.
would rather.
Well,
But all of it makes up
yeah.
who you are. This dichotomy.
And what we do as coaches too, because I think that what's also really interesting is we don't remove ourselves from our relationships with our clients, and our clients also exist within sort of within this reality, right?
Mm,
Whether it's whatever that reality is, whatever like the reality of their lived experience of their truth, including the stuff that they love and the stuff they don't love.
yes.
And just being able to have all of that stuff in the same place at the same time and not run away from it,
Yes.
That's courage.
Yes, absolutely. So in this courageous moment that we're sharing, like, what is that stuff that you love and stuff that you don't love when it comes to this topic?
I think for me, it's very much like what you said. It's recognizing that it's just recognizing that as a result of an accident of birth and the color of my skin and where I live, I have been the beneficiary of white supremacy, not only within the context of colonization, but within the context of just white supremacy in general within North America. And there's shame associated with that. There's guilt associated with that, but there's also a call to action. I mean, I am reminded of Toni Morrison and an interview that she gave and I know that maybe it's the same, but that she gave to PBS. I think it was shortly before she won the Nobel Prize, and the interviewer said, "So, are you concerned that you're alienating a white audience because you only write Black characters?" And she didn't answer the question, which I love. She said something like, and I'm going to mess it up because I'm paraphrasing, but she said something like, white people have a problem. And they really should get on with fixing it. But until they do, I really wish they just keep me out of it. And,
what do you love about that?
What I love about it is that it's now 30 odd years later, and she's 100% right. Like, it seems to me decolonization is a problem for colonizers in the same way that white supremacy is a white people's problem. And I don't think that colonizers see colonization that way. I don't think that white people see white supremacy that way. Universally, I'm not saying everyone. But I think that for me, that's the uncomfortable truth. That's the thing that I had to kind of go, oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, this is my job. This is my job. Part of what I'm here to do is to help fix this. It's got to be. Like, it's a responsibility.
That feels like a lot.
Uh-huh. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, kind of thing. And part of what I'm uncomfortable with is, all right, great, there's that responsibility. Now what? Now what do I do with that? What's the right action moving forward? And it's not always obvious.
No, it's
or
not.
Maybe it should be, and that's the thing, right? Like, is it be obvious? I don't know, right? Like,
when we say
obvious to me.
Well, to me, as in up here, or was it Albert Einstein that said we cannot solve the problems with the same mind that created it? And yes. I think that all of us are saying we cannot know what to do. We go straight to the how. What do I do? What do I do? But that's a question of up here.
Yeah.
And I think that our work is to really stay sort of in the void of not knowing, because it's here. It's not. Our mind isn't going to solve it. That's why I really wanted this conversation, which I'm enjoying so much, like, to be more about here. Yeah.
We could go on and on and on. You know that, right? Like,
oh my gosh, is it time already?
I know. I think that there might be a part 2, if you're willing.
Yeah.
Part 2.
I would love that. Yes.
Because some of the things we didn't explore is like the not the so what, but like the what do we get? Like, decolonizing our voices. Clearly, this is a really big thing, and part of it is just being with it, and also, listening to the wisdom of the body.
Yes.
But once some of that has started to happen, like once it's just cracked open just a tiny bit, what becomes possible?
Wow.
And that's juicy and fun.
I love it. I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. I'm mindful of the time, and there's like so much I want to say. Please promise a part two.
Let's do
There
that.
is more. Yeah.
Let's do that.
And I'm curious, do we have any audience, any comments that have come in?
No, you know what? I've been so focused on you. I have been looking at the comment section. I have been looking at the comment section. We don't have anything right now. But
Okay.
here's what I will say. This recording stays up on LinkedIn Live. So anyone who's watching it, you can feel free to put a comment in, and
Yes.
we'll take that into consideration when we do part two, because I think part two is going to be really important. And we'll get a chance to sort of take a look at that as well. But Sa-Eun, I so appreciate you. I appreciate you having this conversation with me today. How long have we known each other now? A couple of years. And you're just like, every time I talk to you, it's just my heart swells. You are so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Todd. This has been such a beautiful conversation. The way you create and hold space together, just feel safe to share our truth.
Indeed. Yeah. So parting words, and let the folks know how to get a hold of you if anyone's interested in reaching out as well.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just want to say to those of you who join us now or later, just thank you so much for your presence, curiosity, just a desire to, explore. And if any of you feel like you'd like to dive a little bit deeper, please reach out to us. Todd and I, this is what we love to do. It's just to unpack and bring our curiosity lens towards whatever it is that we're working through. So, we may call it decolonization, but this is really all about becoming human and who we truly are. That's what it is. So you can reach out to me by LinkedIn on the messenger or comment, or there's a link on my profile how to reach out to me on a calendar.
Fantastic. And same thing with me, or you can see me at www.toddkargas.com. And that's a wrap for today, but I can't wait for part two. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I'm going to end this broadcast. Give me a second. And I think